Hello, everybody. How are you? I hope you're all doing very well. So, good afternoon. Today, I told some people I had a plan to do a class on some basic gardening tips, which would be good. Because it is getting closer to starting a garden, but I think I'm going to hold off on that because of some conversations that we've had in the van, and this isn't anything bad, it's fun. But I do think it's something that's important to know about. So, we're kind of going over things in the van about like people having pets that are wild animals. And so what I want to make sure that we know is that as much as maybe some people might want to have, sorry, it's a little warm in here, that some people might want to have like wild animals as pets, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea. So instead of going down that route of, oh, what would it be like to have a tiger as a pet, or to have this as a pet, or to have that as a pet? Right now, the only two technically domesticated animals really are dogs and cats. I mean, cows on farms, kind of domesticated. Horses, they call it broken, but they break horses because they are wild animals. But technically, they're supposed to be out in the wild. Actually, every animal is. So instead of going that route of, oh, all animals are friendly, because they're not. Wild animals are wild. They're unpredictable, and you don't know what they could do. I mean, I'll tell you one story. When I was in Yosemite, we were hiking along, and they have all these paved, like these wooden paved tracks that you can actually like walk around. That just like these little trails that you can go on, but they're all wooden, and you can walk by the geysers and things like that, and see like, oh, look how amazing this is, because there's tons of geysers. And so at one point we were walking along, and there's signs everywhere that say, don't mess with the bison. If you see a bison, just kind of turn around slowly and walk the other way. Because not only will they attack you, and they could stomp you to death, unfortunately, scarily, but they also have been known to like knock people into the pits, like the lava pits, or the geysers, which is basically like molten boiling mud or water, and that would hurt and be so painful to drown in. But anyway, so we're hiking along there, and I'm like up ahead of the kind of the group that we were kind of standing in, because I went to go look at this other geyser, and I look over, and seriously, like maybe 10 feet away from me, there's this big old bison, and I'm like, whoop. And so I just kind of backed up and went over to tell my group basically like, hey, we need to go back the other way. Everybody just turn around. So, and we slowly, like the whole group of us as we're going back, just kind of let people know like, hey, there's a bison right off the side of the trail. This is not a safe place to go. So we're going down, and as we looked down, there was like a forest ranger, and he was screaming at people, like, get off, get away from it. And there was this one young woman who sat down, like everybody else passed. She just went past us, right towards the bison, and just sat on the wood there, just to stare at it and to take in the magical experience, which I appreciate the ethereal moment that she had in her own mind of what this is, but it is a wild animal. And the Forest Service person was just like, the ranger was just screaming at her, like, get up, you need to move down, like, please, I don't want to scare the bison. And he kept coming closer, trying to be quiet, but not spook the bison at the same time. Well, all said is, it was luckily the ranger finally talked some sense into the ethereal minded person, and they got up and they left, and nobody got hurt. But things like that happen. So here's what to do when you encounter certain animals in the wild. So we're going to go over it and what the safest thing to do is. Because the first thing you don't want to do is to approach. So what do you do when you encounter animals in the wild? So statistically speaking, most of us don't come into contact with wild animals daily. I only lived at one place where I did, and it wasn't really daily, but it was at least a couple of times a week. So more than 60% of Americans live in incorporated places or cities where they probably won't see anything more than a squirrel or a blue jay, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The chances of us actually seeing a wild animal are very small, unless you live in a rural area or out in the woods or something like that. It's easy to forget. We share this land with all manner of four-legged, winged, and hoofed beasts. When the only form of nature you see regularly is the well-manicured park in your subdivision. Okay, the one time a person is likely to run into some animal neighbors is while on vacation. You might spot a raccoon in a dumpster, um, startle a deer when you're hiking. Just a very few things. You might see like a snake off to the side sometimes, depending. Sorry, where you are. And Stacker compiled expert advice from the National Park Service, wildlife conservationists, not conversationalists, conservationists, and researchers on how to safely react if you encounter one. Well, they says 21 animals in the wild. I'm not sure if we're going to go over all of them. And so now we're going to find out, even like if you run from a coyote, or what it might look like if an owl was going to attack. So these are some things to know. Number one, of course, let's start with bears. The bears. All right, so for bears, where you'll see them, black bears can be commonly found all over North America, according to the National Park Service, while brown bears primarily live in forested regions in the northern part of the United States. You might also see a polar bear in Alaska, but won't find one in the lower 48. So as the population of the United States increases, the tension between humans and bears also rises. Dun, dun, dun. Bears aren't naturally vicious animals, but when they feel threatened, they won't hesitate to attack. When hiking in bear country, try to avoid startling a bear at all costs. The National Service recommends carrying bear spray, avoiding high-risk times like dusk and dawn, always hiking with a group, and especially calling out, "Hey bear," to alert the animals to your presence. If you see a bear and it's stationary, slowly move away so you can keep your eye on it. And a lot of times they'll say try to make yourself as big as a bear. That is one thing that you should do. Make noise. Sometimes it'll scare the bear off. Bears aren't the biggest fan of fire. I know that much. So that is something that you could do. So, hey bear, get out of here. If, they see you. If not, just slowly walk away. Don't call your attention to it. Just get out of there. Now, one difference that I did find out, and this is the place that I lived, and I think I've told you all this, but because of the nature of this class, one thing difference between brown bear and black bear is they say for brown bears to play dead. Put your hands on your neck, because that's where they're going to go for to kind of choke you out. So you want to place your hands on your neck and play dead. Just kind of lay as still as possible. You don't have to close your eyes, but it might be for your own comfort. Okay, that's for brown bears. Black bears don't fall for that at all. I had black bears at a place I lived, and the guy who owned the place said, "Hey, here's the thing about black bears. They don't fall for that. If they're going to attack, or if they're going to have a problem with you, you have to fight back. That's just the way it is." Most of the time they'll run off, and that's all they ever did. They'd be attacking the garbage cans. I'd come out and be like, "Hey, get out of here." And they just and scurry down this little forested corridor that we had where I lived then. But he said, be prepared to fight. They'll fight you. Like, if they get upset with you, they're not going to back down. They're not going to be like, if you pretend to play dead, they're going to come over and be like, "He's giving up. Yay. Pounce, pounce, pounce." No. You need to fight. You need to be ready. Be like, "Hey, and get rocks." Like, "Hey, dude, I'm not playing." Throw a rock at its head and be like, "Hey, I'm telling you, don't want to fight you, but I will." Because that's the thing, is I have to be ready to. So that's just a little thing. So if you see a black bear, they're omnivorous. They eat berries, they eat meat, they eat all sorts, which is omnivore, means they eat everything. They eat plants, all sorts of different things, bugs. So really, they'll be able to find something else. They don't really want to fight you, but if their cubs are near anything like that and they feel defensive, they'll be ready to fight, and to the death. So best thing is try to scare them off. Just be like, "Hey, back away." Like, "Hey, I don't want to fight you if you don't want to fight me." But if they start to charge, you got to be ready. But that's only if they start to charge. I'm not saying start a fight with a black bear. That is not what I'm saying. Like, asterisks, exclamation points, don't start a fight with any bears. They're wild animals, and they'll probably win because they outweigh most of us. Next one up is cougars. Where you'll see them, cougars live all over the United States. Puma, cougar, mountain lion, panther, these big cats go by many names, though the 200-pound beasts look intimidating. They do. Researchers say cougars are much more afraid of humans than we are of them. Odds are you will never come into contact with a cougar, even if you're hiking through their habitat. If you do meet one face to face, the National Park Service recommends standing up tall, looking the cat right in the eyes, and backing away slowly. Whatever you do, do not run away. That might trigger the cougar's instinct to chase its prey. So don't take off. Back away. But always looking at it. Keep your eye on it. And, I would pick stuff up. Let it know that you're serious too, just like with the black bears. Like if you're backing away, you get a stick, get a rock that's on the ground. Just don't go all the way down on the ground. Don't lose sight of it. But get down and just kind of spot a rock and be like, okay, I got something. So if it does charge, you got something. All right. But don't run. That's bad. Next one up is a moose. I have seen them up close. They are huge. Very intimidating. Majestic, but they're huge. And their antlers are just... Anyway, moose. Where you'll see them. In the United States, moose inhabit the forests of the Northeast, upper Midwestern states, Rocky Mountains, and Alaska. So these gargantuan creatures can weigh up to 1,800 pounds. That's huge. I think the biggest one of us that we might know person in our life might be 300 pounds. That's 1,500 pounds more than that. So they're huge. And often have antlers that measure up to 6 feet wide. That's as tall as me. Imposing as they might seem, they're solitary creatures and will often simply walk away when they feel threatened. If a moose starts to move toward you, run away and try to put an obstacle like a boulder or a tree between you. So this time you do run away. And then try to hide behind a tree. This is one of those times where let them know that you know that they're stronger. They're going to take you out. Let them know that for sure. This isn't time to be like, what? I think I could take a moose today. Feeling kind of surly. No, you're going to lose. Man, I won't bet on you. All right, there's the big boy. Or lady, or woman. I don't. Bison, buffalo. Where you'll see them. American bison live in the Great Plains region. So, Yellowstone, definitely there. These formidable creatures can weigh up to 2,000 pounds, 2,200 pounds, 2,200 pounds, making them the largest indigenous land animal in North America. Don't think their size slows them down. Adult bison can reach up to 40 miles per hour. Yeah, they're fast. This is why that person's sitting there like, you can't run. They'll 40 miles an hour is fast. Next time I'll let you know in the van when we're going, and just open the window and see how fast that is. And that's how fast it's coming at you. You can't run anywhere near that fast. If you see a bison while driving, just drive past them slowly and stay inside your car. If you're on foot, be careful not to startle them. Call out to them to signal your presence, then walk away slowly. Yeah, really, it's mostly the last part there. Just walk away slowly. I mean, you can certainly, say, hey, but again, they said don't startle it. So, if it sees you, just, okay, look, I'm walking away. And slowly walk away. I would also suggest doing the same thing, maybe finding a barrier that you can get between. So if you need to play hide and go seek around a rock or a tree, just kind of do that little, because that might protect you a little bit if they decide to charge, but mostly just walk away. Next up is elk. Elk are beautiful animals. They're really a spiritual animal for a lot of Inuit and different tribes or Eskimo tribes and things like that. It's like the elk are sacred. And so where you'll find them, and elks live primarily in the western United States, especially in protected landscapes up in Alaska. There's definitely elk there. Thanks to their resemblance to deer, elk might appear docile, but these majestic beasts can attack if they feel threatened. If you encounter elk in the wild, stay close to your companions. Don't look them in the eye. Avoid eye contact. And walk slowly away, watching the animals for signs of aggression. If the elk starts to chase you, take cover behind an obstacle like a boulder or climb a tree, because they don't have the little claws that can get up the tree to get away from it. But be especially wary in May through June, when female elk can be especially defensive of their newborn calves, and the fall rut from August through October, when bulls become extra aggressive. So that's when the guys are kind of vying for, kind of who their mate's going to be and battling others, and high testosterone or whatever it is that gets them. All right, next one is deer. So a lot of people think deer are just cute and everything like that. No, they'll fight. So where you'll see them, the species of deer inhabit North America: white-tailed deer, which live anywhere between southern Canada and South America; mule deer, which are native to western North America; and black-tailed deer, which live along the Pacific coast from California to British Columbia. So we've got all the deer over by us. So deer is definitely something we should watch out for. The average American is much more likely to see deer than most other animals on this list. Thanks to the deer's widespread habitat in North America, as with the elk, you want to be especially careful around deer mating season between September and December. So, luckily it's over now for us. If you encounter a deer on foot, simply remain calm and back away slowly. If the deer starts charging towards you, put a backpack or another obstacle between you and get away as quickly as possible. You might also see deer while driving, a dangerous situation for both the deer and the driver. Experts recommend turning on your high beams while driving in a known deer habitat to avoid hitting them. So you'll see the deer crossing signs and things like that. Yeah, definitely make sure you're driving cautiously, because it is a yellow sign, as we've learned from some of our other classes. That means to be cautious. But the thing about deer, they have antlers, but what people don't know about them is they'll attack with their legs up. Now, their hooves are razor sharp, like razor sharp. So if it hits you with a hoof somewhere, it'll slice you, like it'll hurt. So that's what you want to be careful. That's why it's back away slowly. Put something in front of you to defend yourself, protect the fleshy points. And hopefully, if you're out where deer are going to be dressed appropriately, jeans are really good, or like really good fabric, things like that will be good when it comes to if a deer did decide to attack. But again, they only really attack if they feel threatened, if they think their children are threatened, or again, if it's like mating season or before then and tensions are high between, the guys and such. Ooh, neat. Okay, we'll do two more, because, yeah, and maybe I'll finish this list one day. But the ones that are most likely. So this one, not so much, but, well, these are concentrated in the south. So no, I was going to go over wild boars, but not so much that we need to worry about. So I'm just going to do ones that... So what about coyotes, or coyotes? Where you'll see them. Though coyotes once lived on the country's plains and deserts, they now roam all over the United States. And we've seen coyotes around. Sometimes you're not sure, but I've definitely seen them, because they're kind of the size of a dog, a little bit bigger, and definitely you're not going to see any collars or anything. Yeah, up at Inspiration Point, we definitely saw a coyote. It wasn't a wolf, it was a coyote. So like the cartoon Wile E. Coyote, coyotes are shrewd and highly adaptive. When the livestock industry's extermination campaign threatened their existence in rural areas, they simply moved into cities. Smart and sneaky coyotes live largely out of the sight of humans. Even if one is living in your neighborhood, you'll likely never see it. If you do spot a coyote and it doesn't run from you, try to scare it away by making yourself as big as possible, yelling at it, waving your arms, throwing rocks toward it, and spraying it with water. So you just want to be annoying and aggressive so that it leaves. Because if it starts to get interested and then it, maybe notices like, I think this one I could pick off, then, it might actually attack. So the best thing is be like, hey, you don't want to mess with me. So, coyotes. Okay, wolves, we're not going to really have soon. Gators, we're not going to have to worry about those. Sharks. Okay, well, let's go over sharks. Why? Because we live by the ocean, by the Pacific Ocean. There are definitely sharks in there. I went up to Gold Bluff Beach one time. This will be my last story. And when we went up there, beautiful spot, a lot of people surfing. But what do sharks see when people are surfing? Say they see the surfboard from underneath, and they see these paddling, and it looks like this big shadow. Well, a lot of times they'll think it's a seal. Now that's one of sharks' favorite meals is a seal. So they'll go up and they'll just attack. They don't think twice about it. They're like, that's my food. And sharks will eat anything. And when I got up to Gold Bluff Beach, they said that a great white had come out and attacked and killed a surfer. And so people were being and there were tons of seals in the water. And we went swimming in the ocean, things like that, but they're like, be very careful because there are sharks out there as well. And they're great whites. They're not like, they're not little sharks, which are still very dangerous. I mean, any shark. But what would you do is say you were in the ocean, or say you're on a boat and fell off into the water. What would you do? Because we're on the Pacific Ocean. So you'll see several species of shark in both the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. The Jaws soundtrack may always strike into the hearts of beachgoers around the world. Terrifying as these predators seem, experts say you can escape an attack by remaining calm and swimming away slowly and methodically. If the shark does not seem aggressive, if the shark does start to attack, maintain eye contact, make yourself as big as possible, and hit them in sensitive spots like the nose or on their gills on the side. So you just want to pound like on the side, hit them on the nose, and definitely try to keep their mouth away from you because that's the main part that they can get you. Their tail sometimes could thrash you a little bit. But really, you want to maintain that eye contact, see them, and stop their mouth. And hit them in sensitive spots. And hopefully they'll leave. But again, I don't know what methodically means. I think slowly, just making sure, maybe a side stroke, you swim away from the shark. Just kind of kicking towards them. And keeping an eye on them. And then just being ready to tread water if they start to swim towards you so you can be ready to attack. But that's what you want to do if there's a shark in the water. But again, most of these are try to slowly get away. That's the main thing you should do. Okay, well, there's a bunch more species. I mean, this is only 12 out of 21. I skipped a bunch, but these are some of the main ones that we might encounter here in our wonderful Golden State. All right. Well, I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you all at some point next week. All right. Ciao, everybody.